Other than that, we're gonna chat for, I don't know, probably around an hour or so. So from now till about 9 o'clock. Is that comfortable?
That's cool with me. You're on Eastern time, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm out here in Chicago, so I'm like 9 o'clock, 2 hours. Okay.
Oh, that's right. You're an hour behind me. Or I'm an hour ahead, or I don't know how it works. One of us. Yeah, I lived in Chicago for a while. I'm just outside of Indianapolis now.
Okay. Yeah, it's crazy how Indianapolis can be so close, but the time is just zoned up.
For a while, Indiana was, I think we had five different time zones.
Really?
Just because of the way the zones were divided. There was an episode of The West Wing that the sole purpose was it was set in Indiana so they could make fun of us because the heroes were driving from one time zone to another and they couldn't keep up with the president.
Okay.
I don't know if it's worth a whole rewatch just for that, but that one particular episode is amusing to us Hoosiers.
West Wing. What? I've never heard of the West Wing.
You never heard of the West Wing with Martin Sheen?
No, I have to check that out. So, like, is it like a sci-fi series or?
Wait, that's a television series. It'll seem a little bit quaint now because it's back when Americans had a very different idea of what presidential politics were.
Oh,
The president's the good guy. He's played by Martin Sheen, and Rob Lowe is there, and what's his name from Get Out and The Handmaid's Tale? Josh, can't think of his last name.
okay.
Great actor, but he's in there, and the dude that got eaten by two T-Rexes in The Lost World and probably has been in other stuff. Richard Schiff, his name I know.
Okay.
So
I'll check that out.
if you were watching, I think it was in the 90s was when that was a really popular show. Like the first couple of seasons in particular. This is just we'll call this the start of the show. This is something that amazes me that the writers in the world might want to hear about. Is if you go back and you watch The West Wing, Andrew Sorkin has admitted to doing heavy drugs. I believe he said he was smoking crack. A Google search will check that. But he wrote back to back to back all the episodes for some of the most amazing television in all of history. So not an endorsement for crack, very much an endorsement for The
West Wing. That's pretty good. I'll definitely have to check it out.
And The Handmaid herself was in there as well. And some other people that have gone on to be famous. Allison Janney is killing it. You know what? This conversation makes me want to go rewatch The West Wing. That was a truly amazing show.
Okay. Me and my wife will have to sit down and watch that at some point.
So hi there, esteemed audience. My guest is none other than Andrew Nehring. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Rob.
So I am thrilled to talk with you. There's all kinds of stuff for us to chat about. You've got two different series and a new book that's just dropped, David Massie and the Hidden Underworld. Pull that up, esteemed audience. You can be purchasing it while you're watching or listening to us. Esteemed audience knows that I never make my guests suffer through me summarizing either their biography or their book, because I'll just make a mess of both. And why would I do that to you when you're right here and you could say it? So please give esteemed audience kind of an overview of yourself, and we'll go from there.
100%. So I'm Andrew M. Nehring, author of David Massie and the Quantum Flux and Corrupted Light Chronicles. We've got 2 books in that series. So to really give you a picture about my background is I'm going to take you back to 2019, right, when I first started writing. And I know 4 books in 3 years now, is it? Something like that. But I really started writing because one of my friends died. And I figured, it's time to live life, live life to the fullest, not worry about what other people think. I always thought of these creative, imaginary worlds, and I'd always get lost in other people's worlds they created. So I was like, you know what? I want to make something that's immersive, that's fun, and that reads in a way that I would like to read when I was younger in age. So I really kind of got into writing the books like I'm right here. if the esteemed audience can see through the background.
Esteemed audience who is listening to us, David's holding up his books, but because he also has the newest cover behind him, the green on the books, I think, is covering up the new covers.
Yeah.
But the good news is you follow the link to I called you David, to Andrew's website, and you can see all the covers nice and pristine.
Oh yeah, got them all laid out. You click there, you see Corrupted Light Chronicles, David Massie, and it's all there. Still tweaking a little things on the website. It's not where I want it to be right now, but we're getting there. But yeah, so like I grew up loving Star Wars, Star Trek, and Lord of the Rings, just in general, a big time nerd. And you know, I'm pretty young, so like I wasn't there for the awesome peak fiction of the 80s and 90s, really, because I was born in 96. But I really loved everything I really got into, which was Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings. I read Ender's Game, but what really sparked my like reading love was in high school. I started getting into like mythology, like whether it be Beowulf or the Odyssey. You know, everybody's forced to read the Odyssey, and I loved it. And then one of my teachers had me really start writing, and I remember I would just slap everything on a page, and it was probably unreadable garbage, but at the time it was something that like always stuck with me. So I'm sitting there at 2019, my friends pass, I'm like, I want to write a book. So I write Corrupted Light Chronicles, book 1, and that was like my first real plunge into writing. Finally got it finished up and published about December 2019, right before society completely changed, that I was still in college, and I remember I couldn't even walk for 2020. So yeah, that's kind of the start of the background. So I know I ramble a lot.
No, it strikes me that is a wonderful time to sink or to have sunk into writing, if you could manage it. It was right there at the start of the pandemic, like, oh, the world is way too terrifying. Let me just turn that out and focus now on my fictional world.
100%. I remember just deep diving, and you know, I get lost in my own head thinking about all the possible ways these books can go. And I always love, I know everybody says they love a good twist, but I love strong bad guys and great twists that make the book like that end it where it's like, what, you know? And so I try and write them as not as fast as I can. I put a lot of thought and effort into it, but I'm not like George R.R. Martin waiting on the book for, what is it? How many years has it been now?
Oh, I have a conspiracy theory. I think he wrote it a long time ago. And he said, well, the only way I could deal with fans, because I have all the money, I have all the fame, let me just put this in a lockbox, and when I'm dead, publish it.
that goes to his estate.
Because once it's published, even if it's the best possible finale that blows away the TV show, wouldn't take much, but makes all the fans happy. Like, yes, George, this is what we most wanted. Again, he's already got all the fame, all the money, and it's more likely that some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. It's like, do I have time to deal with angry emails? Nah, let me just enjoy my life, and it comes out when it comes out. Maybe. I don't know, Mr. Martin, if you're listening, come on the show. I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, but yeah, I love these books. They're passion of mine, and yeah, that's
so,
my
fan of twist. What are some this is a terrible question, because obviously we can't reveal the twist in your books. The esteemed audience is purchasing their copy, or they've just read it, enjoyed it, and are enjoying the interview and getting ready to purchase the sequel for David Massie. But what are some of your favorite twists in fiction?
I love uh, let's go back to being a kid. Love Darth Vader being the father. I love the whole like Luke, I am your. I don't even know what he said verbatim. So, but I love the whole like family aspect. I love twists that end up where the main character completely like loses. So like not like Marvel, so to speak, because no Marvel, it always seems they beat the bad guy every time. Maybe Thanos the first time, but I'd say probably like one of the first like real big twists and turns. Like it's through mythology, really. Like you think about the Odyssey, how you think he's coming home every other chapter, but he gets more and more entrenched in, the Mediterranean, getting lost and all that stuff. I thought the Percy Jackson twist where, he's Poseidon, that big whole reveal, like he's Poseidon's son. Not how it was done in the movie, though. My wife is such a big fan of those books, and I remember we're watching the movie, and she's like, every like 3 seconds, she's like, "No, this is not how it's supposed to be." There was this big reveal, and I'm like, "I know, but what can you do?"
Well, with movie adaptations, I've seen some of what I would consider to be the best movie adaptations, and like best case scenario, which for me would maybe be The Shining. Best case scenario, the movie is also very good. It's a different kind of good than the book, but both are equally good. I wouldn't skip either. But most of the time, the book is just its own separate experience. Even when the movie is tremendous, don't skip out on the book.
100%. Well, the thing is, like, a book is almost like a movie that you're able to play to yourself. That's how I kind of like view it almost.
Oh, it's better. You get to pick the soundtrack. You get to cast it. The lighting is at your preference.
The Shining twist, that was a crazy one where at the end he's just typing it all out, and this whole time he's just saying the same thing, going absolutely nuts. But isn't it with Stephen King books? I haven't read too many of them, but don't they get there's a lot of things that are left out of the movie, so to speak.
Frequently, because there have to be, because you couldn't film some of that madness.
Oh yeah.
Something I will say about Stephen King endings, and then we'll move on because I have all kinds of questions for you. But when I read On Writing, which I think I highly recommend, a lot of guests who've come on the show have recommended, it's a great book about writing. But one of the tips that he recommends there is to not to plot your story out, just get going while it's a white hot experience, and get to wherever the ending, let the ending come to you. You think it's going to be one way, but maybe you'll be surprised. And when I read that, I was like, oh, that makes 100% sense, because lots of times I have really enjoyed the beginning, mostly enjoyed the middle, and then the ending was like, what happened there? So that is a recipe to ensure you get that kind of ending. So somewhere between the white hot passion of Stephen King, I would never tell you not to write like Stephen King. Obviously, that's ideal for all of us, but maybe with just a little bit of plotting, a little bit of looking ahead to make sure that you're not writing sell, and it just ends. Like, well, I'm tired of this book and I already got paid for it, so I guess that's the ending.
Yeah. That's great. Like how he's just able to put it all out there. I'm very methodic when I go about it. Like everything comes to me in scenes, and for like months I'll just be jotting things down on my phone, and then it's like almost puzzle piecing it together and being like, oh, this would be a really cool way to get to this point, and all that. So I kind of have, my process is a little jumbled because I myself am a little jumbled. But it's my passion.
So, well, you know what? I've got lots of questions for you about David Massie and your process with plotting. Before we do that, though, we should mention, I know that you've been very public about the fact that you have dyslexia. and that has not obviously kept you from going on to become an author. When did that present itself, and how did you overcome those challenges initially just to become a reader?
100%. So I have a photographic and auditory memory, and that plays a big part in my whole like dyslexia story, because I was able to memorize all the words and spit like it seemed like I'm reading, right? From fifth grade, from ever since first grade to about sixth grade, from when like I caught it. But it seemed like I'm reading. I have no idea what the words actually mean. I'm just spitting it back to you, and they're like, "Oh, well, he's completely fine. He doesn't have any problems." And so, since I had this great memory, I would run into a lot of the time, especially after I got diagnosed with dyslexia and all that, was teachers being like, I don't believe you. I'm not gonna. And so there would be a lot of friction there. I remember had to been at least 14 times from sixth grade to was senior year of high school is like 12th grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time.
At least a dozen times of that happening, because they just thought I was lying or something. But really, I had the comprehension was the big problem for me. Like I could memorize the words and spit it back. And it also ties into how I write my books. So I write them in a fast, fun-paced way that they're not too big books. It's not like you're cracking open $100,000 word book. It's not like you're cracking open 100,000 word book. You're reading a quick book that's around 150 pages, and it reads so fast that it's like it just plays like a movie. And that's what I love, because those are the types of books that I loved growing up. Was like, and that's really the first book I got super passionate about was Beowulf, and that was only like 120 something pages. And so that's like the real reason why I pulled it off the shelf when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, I'll read this like freshman year in high school. And that's really what started sparking stuff for me. And so when I write these books, I write it in a way that it's fun, it's fast paced, and really like you don't see what's coming next. And by the time you put down the book, you're like, wow, like that was amazing. Where is the next one? You know, and I want to spark that passion for younger readers.
So prior to being diagnosed, did you think that hearing it and memorizing it was just the way everybody else was reading?
I thought personally, whenever it was, popcorn, Andrew, reread, big dread for me. That was like a giant, like every day in class, I was like, do not call me. I was the kid who would be like the popcorn, because I did not like reading until probably around 7th, 8th grade. But it was a big, like I knew other people had no problem reading. But for me, it was always like, those commercials, right? Where they're like, oh, look at how like strong our paper towels are compared to other paper towels. And they put the rock on, and, the one paper towel glides through it, no problem. And the other paper towel gets shredded up and torn up. I felt like the other paper towel there. So that's kind of like the best way I could describe it. It was more like I knew I wasn't good at it, right? Because like I thought I would, like, people would be laughing at me while I was reading or whatever. And I still like just never understood what I was saying. I remember, what was a big 7th grade book? It's like Catcher in the Rye? I think it was Catcher in the Rye, but
You can look at a lot of 7th grades. I don't know what they were doing in yours.
I went to a Catholic school too, so from kindergarten through 8th grade. So I think it was Catcher in the Rye, but I remember like going through and like being called on to read that book so much and having no idea what it was about.
That's a risque choice for a Catholic school. Good for
Yeah.
Whoever put that in the curriculum.
Oh yeah.
So when you read Beowulf, you said you're a freshman in high school at that point,
Yep.
and then that you fall in love with that. So when does the ship turn around and you become, I assume, a pretty big reader, right?
Yeah, so I got pretty big into reading and writing probably my sophomore year. I remember I had my teacher, and it was Mrs. Topham, and she was trans, and this was a big time. This was a big thing at the time. It was 2010. Like I remember they were really mean to this woman. They would have
And to teaching at a Catholic school.
no. So
Okay,
after eighth grade, I was out of the Catholic school.
okay, just checking.
Yeah, so my
Catcher in the Rye was impressive. That's amazing.
yeah,
It's the most progressive Catholic school ever.
oh yeah. But yeah, this was my teacher, and she got ridiculed. I remember at one of the parades, they did a whole float making fun of her, and I thought it was
Oh, wow.
abhorrent. But this lady really put a lot of time into helping me like free write, like writing not for a purpose, writing for something I want to make. And I remember doing writing 25 pages of gibberish about like a battle between minotaurs and riding rhinos and all this other stuff. And I was like, and it always stuck with me, always stuck with me. And I just like, it got to the point where I'm like, I need to write in 2019, you know?
I'm sorry, you said the school made a float. The school did this, or the students did this at a school event, and they still let it go. You know, there's no way that's excusable, no matter how it came about, is there?
I know it was like their, I want to say it was the like a homecoming parade or some parade, but I remember it so clearly because I was there and all these guys were making fun of her by dressing up as her, and it was pretty bad.
That was what year that happened?
2011,
Way too recent.
2011,
Way too recent.
it's crazy how time, like you look back and that's only 10 years ago, you know. It's crazy, but I am so like if you're hearing this, Miss Topham, you helped me so much, so thank you.
So what did Miss Topple do? She was just encouraging you on a regular basis. She was reading what you wrote. How did she help?
She challenged me. So she was like, she gave one of the assignments was a free writing thing, and this wasn't a thing in any of my other English classes throughout. It was a free writing assignment, and she could tell I was passionate about the story, and so she challenged me to keep writing more, keep doing more with it. And this was like the first, and like it's really work. It was me working that muscle for the first time, and yeah, I'd say I owe a lot of my success to her. You know.
So this is a thing that's caused you terror if you're going to be called on to read Catcher in the Rye in class, and you know that's going to I guess that was a different school, so one of the same mean students who built the float, but still, students can be mean at all schools at that age. So I'm assuming there's a lot of personal trauma tied up in that, and then she gives you this feedback that gets you that almost like you're walking for the first time, right? But you're reading and you're writing.
Oh yeah, I went from crawling to hobbling, I'd say, but it's a start, you know, and stuck with me. And I am just so thankful for like even the bad experiences of kids laughing at me while I was trying to read. Like all that helped get me to this point right now, you know. That's all I kind of think about.
So at this point, now that I'm talking to you, what's your reading and writing habits like now? Do you have like an ideal day?
So writing, like when I'm in the groove of writing, I get like kind of obsessive compulsive, like, okay, I need to write this amount, and I'll just throw myself at the computer for hours until I can't go anymore. And how I write is kind of like drafts. So my first draft is probably one whole like big chunk of words. And so they're jumbled, some sentences are up and down. I can really see like my dyslexia when I do that. So it's like I can see like, oh, I moved this around, and it's because I'm just throwing all, like, I'm not trying to do the final product. I'm just getting what's in my head on the page, or what's in my outline into my head on the page. And so, sorry, what was the question?
I was just asking about your average workday, but when you're doing that, you're throwing everything on the page. You're not worried about what the paragraphs are, the sentences. You're not. Who cares? That's next draft. It's just get the story down. So good day. How many hours are you spending, and how many do you have, like a word count? Do you know on average what that might produce?
Oh, I don't know about word count, but I will go through. I think at most I've done like 8 chapters at once, and then like that was like hours and hours, and I just remember sitting there being like just brain dead afterward. But as far as like process goes, that's when I'm writing, right? I say 70% of the time it's just idea gathering. You know how I said I make the scenes in my head, and I'll like place them on an outline and figure out what I want to do with it, figure out my characters, figure out my bad guys. Are my bad guys good enough? You know, I think I'm a big believer in the bad guy makes the good guy. So in David Massie, you'll see it, especially if you've read the first one, the dark armored figure. He's like almost like a pseudo Darth Vader. This is what I'm trying to pull from the ether, but in his own way, and there's big reveals this book about the dark armored figure, but he is definitely one of those characters I hold really near and dear. And I think how I made him, I probably can't say any spoilers for the first one though.
I mean, so long as it's you saying, I mean, not me.
Well, when the dark armored figure enacted his plot to kind of manipulate David and CP to take out the things he needed them to take out, I thought it was very he acted like Darth Vader mixed with are you a fan of anime at all?
Yes, but I am shockingly unversed in much of it.
Okay. Well, like I tried to like have him be like a strategist, kind of like Lelouch or something like that. And so I think it's cool when I have my bad guy kind of dictate the story.
Gotcha. So theoretically, your good guy is only as good as in relative to what he's able to, or she, your hero, what they are able to overcome.
And my whole goal for David Massie is I want it to be a long series that really takes the main character David from this kid to becoming a leader, I want to have him have just such like character development. Like I've thought this book, I'm only on the second one, but I'm in my head on the fourth one. So I want it to be, you see the progression every time. Like David's going to make his mistakes. He's going to get played by the bad guy, but he's going to learn his lessons, and he's going to persevere and become stronger.
You mentioned that you've got jumbled notes from everywhere on your phone and elsewhere when you're plotting. So how do you begin to put that plot? Because you're writing it, it's still red hot when you're getting it down on the page. So when you've got notes and things, how much of do you do like a formal outline, or is it just here's my page of incoherent ramblings like Jack in The Shining, where it's just all over the wall like a conspiracy theorist board?
It might be even a little worse than that, because I'm also, in addition to being dyslexic, I'm dysgraphic. And it's funny when you look up the definition of that on Google, it says the inability to write. So I'm a walking contradiction. But so my handwriting, terrible, terrible handwriting. But I will straight up type it out on my phone, and then I always handwrite my outlines. So it might say like 5 words on that outline, but like those 5 words are tied straight to somewhere in my memory where it's like the scene. And it's when I start writing, there's this flow. And when the flow comes, it's like all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to add this in there. And it's something I love. It's like spur of the moment from the ether. Bam, here you go. And that's actually how in this new book I'm coming out with, David Massie in the Hidden Underworld, I thought of the whole idea for adding the gods into it. So there's some lost gods they find in this book.
And so when you're planning ahead, because I know you're going to put in some twists, are those coming to you as you go as well, or are you planning ahead for the twists that you're going to do?
Most of my twists are planned ahead, but some of them are just too good not to put in there. Like in the moment, I'm like, I'll put this in there, and if it doesn't feel right, I'll take it out. But it's really like, I'd say 70% of the twists are planned, 30% are not.
It's a pretty good ratio.
Oh yeah,
not that I don't know how you may disagree with me. I don't know if it's up to the author what's going on in your head all the time. Sometimes like you have a little bit of control, but the story is what it is, man.
Yeah, it's guided. I definitely think it's a guided thing. The story comes to me. I'm just lucky enough to be able to write it.
Guided like by a muse, or just guided by?
I'd say, everybody has their own muses. I think God gives me some ideas. My life gives me ideas. I like to pull themes from, things I've had to encounter in my life that I put in there. And, I put things I love from other stories, movies, TV shows. Just pull all the concepts together, mash them up like Play-Doh and form my own statue.
Well, I've seen you. I mean, that's what we're all doing. There's only what are there? Is there 8 main plots? I think 7. I can't remember. Check out Christopher Booker, esteemed audience. He'll tell you the exact number of plots that there are through all of literature. I want to say it's 8. I've got an outline. I could look it up, but I'm not gonna. Well, it doesn't matter. There's a fixed number of plots. We've all seen some variation. We're all doing remixes. That is what it is. So I know that at this point, I've heard you talk elsewhere that you're planning for around 3 to 5 books, possibly 7.
Honestly, I could see David Massie getting to, I don't know why, 11 books.
Wow, it has gone up since the last interview I read with you.
Yeah, so at first I was thinking 3 to 5, maybe 7, but I'm like, I really want to take David from, like, in each book, have him grow a little bit. And it will get to the point where he's like, wow, that's David Massie. But he started out as this snarky, sarcastic kid, that just missed his brother, and grows into this great leader. So like, that's what I'm trying to streamline, I guess. And I think 11 books is more than a healthy amount.
What's going to happen is you're going to figure out the perfect way to end it in 10, and somebody's going to listen to this interview and they're going to say, he promised 11. Where's my 11th book?
I love their passion. I mean, I definitely will think about doing next gen and all that with it too. So,
well, there you go. Instead of 11 books, or instead of 11, they'll get 20 books because you'll do the next generation. It'll be fine.
They're getting David Massie's whole life story.
So with planning out that far ahead, I know obviously you've got some jumbled notes. How do you focus on the here and now, what's immediately in front of you with the story, as opposed to getting overwhelmed by all that's still yet to come?
So I always start with where I want the next book to end. So I want the next book to end this way. And then I work back, kind of. That would be the best way to kind of describe it.
So is there a list someplace with 11 great endings jotted down?
So I don't know. It's kind of like a game of chess, but yes, there is some endings jotted down. Like I got the ending for book 3, ending for book 4. Kind of got the ending for book 5. I don't know what I want to do there yet, though. I try not to box myself in too much. All I know is the next one, I definitely want it to end here. 4th one, if I find a better ending, I'll end it there, you know? I think of like a timeline and you chop it up.
Gotcha. Okay. So even though you don't know the exact plan for the later books, you know where the timeline's going to be, approximately where the characters are going to be. You have faith that when you get there, the great ending will come to you.
100%. And yeah, you know, I already kind of know how I want the books to end. Like I have the overall ending in my head. It's just I have book 3 ending, and then it's wide open, and then the last ending's right there. So I know where I want the whole series to end, but it's getting there.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. And so sort of like any other journey, right? You have a map, you have a basic destination, and once we get on the road, we'll find it as we go, right?
100%. It's just like a fun ride, fun adventure.
And by the way, esteemed audience, I looked it up because it was bugging me. Christopher Booker says there are seven main plots that you can remix and reuse. 5 basic conflicts, 7 main plots. Look them up. Christopher Booker, do a Google search. You're welcome. I'm here to help. So, okay, so you get the block of draft down. And you go, is it you look back until you get to the end, or do you get to the current book before you start rewriting and revising?
So I will go through the whole, like, I think it's easier to describe it as like I'm making a statue out of marble. First, I have to set up the marble, and that's me just putting everything on the page, right? And being like, okay, now it's time to get detailed with it and go through and chisel out the features and make sure everything's how I want it to be. And even while I'm doing that, I'll have spur of the moment ideas that come to me. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's going in the book. So I'll throw it on the page. And then when I go through so many rounds of edits on these, because I will be doing my dyslexia stuff with it, but I'll go through a bunch of rounds of edits, make sure this is perfect, make sure it's reading how I want it to. And yeah.
Your dyslexic stuff, what kind of stuff is that?
So when I throw it all on the page, you'll have jumbled words, some sentences will be flipped. And so I get it to where, like, and sometimes I'll just leave the part that I wanted to put the sentence in, like leave the main subject out, and I'll be like, oh, I totally forgot to put that in there, you know? And so it's really just being mindful of my own mistakes and my own shortcomings when it comes to just throwing it on the page the first time. But as long as you keep reading through it and working through it, you make progress.
But you're not doing that until you get the full story down at a full draft.
100%, yeah.
Keep using 100%, your Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Your restraint. I need to be able to do. I'm forever. I described this in a workshop I'm leading as like taking a shower and drying your legs before you wash your upper body. But you're gonna have to dry them again. You're wasting time. Doesn't stop me. I'm well aware of that. I'm like, oh, but that part's already written. I don't have to imagine anything. Let me just prettify it a little bit, and then of course I'll realize something that's true about the plot that I have to change all of that again. So glad I prettied it. Do as I say, esteemed audience, not as I do. You'll be better. So, how many drafts before somebody other than you takes a look at this thing?
I have to go through it at least 4 or 5 times, because on that fourth or fifth time, that's when I get wordsmithy with it, and that's when I'm like, oh, let's put that in there. Hey, this reads better this way, and so it's definitely multiple drafts, at least 4.
Gotcha. And then who's your first reader?
My first reader, probably my wife, and then I'll tell my dog the story, but sometimes I'll let my parents take a crack at it. They're great. They'll be like, oh, this is amazing, and I'm like, what is amazing? All of it. And so I'm like, I like having my wife go through it. She'll be like, she really knows like where I want to go with the story. I'm always blabbering to her about my books, the story. I'm like, oh, I just came up with this idea. Like when I actually incepted the idea for David Massie, it was probably like 1 a.m, 2020. And we're laying in bed and I'm like, David Massie. And then I went on a tangent about reality changing with a dark armored figure. And she's like, will you just go to sleep? But yeah, and so she's always the first one to read it.
And when she gives you constructive criticism, how do you take that in good grace without having that turn into some sort of fight or otherwise impact your marriage?
So the big thing was like I'm a little bit hard-headed and stubborn, and I had to learn how to take criticism, really, because like I'm super prideful about what I do, but I had to learn like, hey, constructive criticism is really good, and it can help me get my books to where I want them to be. And so that was like, every writer has to go through a constructive criticism phase of like having to be like, oh, let me not get angry at their objection. Let me hear it, internalize it, figure out a good solution how to utilize it.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes the problem is readers just don't appreciate our brilliance. Once in a while, that is true.
I get that way too, though. Trust me.
No, it's never true. Listen to your critics, esteemed audience. Revise, rewrite, of course. Once in a while, it is true, though. A little bit.
My biggest thing is, and my wife always will say this when I get criticism, I'm always like, they didn't read the whole book. And she's saying it before I even say it. I'm like, okay, maybe let me read it again. But yeah.
So how long does a draft take you to get done on average? And then how between the initial draft to the end process, what's the timeline?
Timeline, I want to say, so with this most recent one, the first David Massie probably took me around like 6 months. This one took me around 8 to 10 months because I want to take more time and really evaluate the storyline and make sure like it's a wild ride. Like I wanted this one to be like, you get in and it's immediately a roller coaster with twists and turns. You're not expecting this to happen in this chapter. And I wanted to do ancient Greece right. I wanted to put a bunch of mythical stuff in it, and I wanted to do like I always like having like some funny aspects in my book, and this one try to add some like Greek culture, how like most of the city states of Greece all hated each other. Athenians hated the Spartans, and so because they're all up until I want to say Persia, right? That unified them, but up until that, they were just the divided states.
So that first draft of the 6 to 8 months, that first draft is what, maybe 2 months, 3 months? I don't know how much of that time does that take.
Oh, I totally missed the question.
I mean, there's no grade. You passed this class already. You're good.
I'm just talking here. I'm sorry. The first draft probably like I've had first drafts done in a week, but I would not be comfortable showing anybody my first draft. I think that is something I need to like roll up the sleeve. Like I'll get the first draft done, like first David Massie, I had it done probably a week, and then months of redrafting, chiseling, and getting it ready. Same thing with Corrupted Light. I probably had Corrupted Light first draft done in about 2 weeks, but that was 7 months of re-editing. That was my first book too, so it was like a lot of elbow work, learning on the fly, and all that stuff. And then, but this I don't know if you can see. I try to. It's my second Corrupted Light. That one took, I want to say the first draft to finish it was probably 3 months.
So that, I mean, 1 week, 1 to 2 weeks to get an initial draft.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like? Are you not eating, not going to you're not showering?
I get a little obsessive with it. Yeah, it's, I definitely shower. I definitely, so like, I'll do this thing where I will work so hard that I forget to eat. And then I'll be like, after I'm done working, I'm like, oh, why do I feel so weird? And my wife's like, you forgot to eat your lunch. And I'm like, oh no. So there's that, like, I'll just kind of like pour my all, like my whole like mind and soul into these. So.
Gotcha. And then so you take off like a shot. You had the friend that's close to you dies. You realize that we're all here for as long as we got, and that's it. So let's do it while we're here. Yeah, more or less.
Mm-hmm. I'll let you continue.
Well, I was going to pivot to publishing because you're getting it done. You're on fire. You're getting these books out during the rest of the world's falling apart. You're like, not until I finish my books. Then you have my permission to fall apart. But until then, I need you to hold it together. So when it comes to publication, do you spend any time at all looking at traditional publishing, or is it just straight to, I know how I'm going to publish this, I want to publish it my way?
So I do take the time to, like, I do query agents and do all the traditional path, but I'm not gonna wait on others for my dream. I'm gonna just get it out there and let the people decide.
So how long did you try to play it straight before you decided, I'm just gonna do it?
I think it was like at least like 6 months of, but I wouldn't trade any of that, I wouldn't trade any of my journey, any of the no's I've gotten. I think every single thing has led me to here, and I'm pretty damn happy.
Well, I should be very clear. I'm a big proponent of self-publishing. Just ask you how sitting around querying and waiting forever would have worked out for him. He's doing fine.
Would I love an agent? Yes, but I love what I love more is people telling me how much they love my book and like what it did for them reading. And that's something that makes me so happy.
So you put the book out there, and how long does it take for it to find readers, and what are you doing to get readers interested?
So like I'm going on podcasts and I have a TikTok, still trying to get that all going. Even though I am a Gen Z, I don't really know how to use Twitter, so I don't really use Twitter. But as far as like how long does it take to get readers, I'd say probably like it takes like a couple months for everything to like flow in, and then we have a positive flow, so that's good.
Beautiful. Well, I know you're a full-time author at this point, right?
Yeah, I do. I full-time author, and I also have a job as well.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Right. And then I had a burning question, and
Oh no.
So nobody's passing this class. So you're putting the books out. You're hitting the road, running. Where do you foresee yourself? Do you have like a timeline, like 5 years from now? I'll be here. I'll be accomplishing this. Here's my vision board. Or is it, I don't know how long I'm going to be alive. Until then, I'm going to write.
So a little bit of both, even though I have 2 series, I am in the makings of making a 3rd one, and that's going to be a comic book. And so that's another whole ordeal that I'm putting myself through. But yeah, so I want to make a comic book, and that's going to be, I'm nowhere near ready to tell people about it, but it's something super cool. And what was the question again?
I don't remember. Who cares? This comic book. Are you working with artists to make this happen? Where are you at in the process?
So I'm in the drafting it, and then I'm gonna try. If you're a graphic designer listening to this, you can always contact me. But I am in the process of trying to get a graphic designer. So getting a graphic designer that wants to make like manga-esque comic books, and I want to get somebody who's younger. I want to give like you know what I'm saying? You give a newer like a younger graphic designer who hasn't really had their big break yet.
Gotcha. And then they're forever going to be tied up with the tremendous success that this is going to be.
Thank you. That makes me smile.
Was there something about this new idea? And obviously, you can't say much at this stage, but did it present initially as a novel, or did the moment you looked at it, you said, "No, this has got to be a graphic novel"? When did you know that it had to be? That was the type of storytelling for it.
Probably ever since the inception. I remember I was the time I was struggling for money, trying to just DoorDash it out, and I came out with this idea for Realm of Champions. That's what I'm going to call it. And what's cool is it brings in a lot of modern concepts mixed with old mythology, and it's about as much as I can say.
Well, we got a title, so I've already dragged that out of you.
Oh yeah, I had to close the door. You were opening Pandora's box.
All of these, by the way, all of these statements count as promises made explicitly to your readers. There will be 11 David Massie books, Realm of Champions, coming to you, guaranteed. Count on it.
Seven corrupted lights.
And then I wanted to ask you also about Books Forward, because they found me, so they're already earning their keep. They're the publicist. Esteemed audience will remember we had Ellen Whitfield on episode 160 from Books Forward. So she gave us their view of the process, how they work. with authors. Now that you're on here, we can get the reverse tale of that. What was your experience working with Books Forward, or is continuing to be working with Books Forward?
Books Forward is great. They have given me like great insight to my own books. I use the books Fluent. They have that whole part too, so it's another round of edits I go through, and it's also a great way that's helped me reach a lot more people.
The publicist edits the book also.
It's like they have like their editorial team that also, like, I get my own graphic designers to like design, these cool backgrounds and all that stuff, but they help put it together, help me get it. Anything I need, they're there. So
gotcha. So they do that, and they work with you. Then they come up with your points of, hey, this is how we're going to market you to potential great podcasts like the Middle Grade Ninja podcast. This is how we'll get you going. How much contact are you having with them? Do you hear from them on a regular basis, or do they launch you? What's been your experience?
So some weeks I hear from them every day, all day. It's just corresponding, and then sometimes it's like every 2 weeks I get an update. So what's cool is they will work with me pre-release and post-release.
Gotcha. And they know about more or less the strategy, the timeline for when you're going to continue hitting with the David Massie books, so they can be anticipating ahead
100%.
Events and things.
Yeah, they're able to really like narrow down all the particulars.
Does that add any extra stress where you said, okay, well, I thought that I would have this done in 6 months, but it's going to be 8, but now Books Forward has me booked on this podcast for this date. Things of that nature hasn't come up yet.
It's always easier just to put the book out, but it's better to take your time.
What, other than coming on this show, obviously, what has been the most effective marketing that you found so far?
We did some campaign that really like shot up. It was some campaign that shot my book up into like the top 10,000 on Amazon, which was crazy. That was in October, and that was for the first installment of David Massie, and so that was like, I was over the moon then. And so yeah, that was probably the best way we went about it. A bunch of people immediately bought it. I think it was I want to say it was like a ebook something.
And that builds the expands the base for all the fans that are eagerly going to be buying books too, and counting down till you get to book 11.
Oh yeah. And it's funny because you don't think a book this big could build a base that could last 11 books, but it does.
No, I think you're a genius for the shorter book, because I think that was a much easier read if somebody hasn't heard of you before. Like, oh, okay, well, it's a short book, I can give this a shot. And they enjoy it. Plus, they get that gratification. For me, it was the Book It gratification. If you read so many books as a child with Book It, you can get a free personal pan pizza courtesy at Pizza Hut. Some of esteemed audience will know what I'm talking about. Others will be thinking, my God, I would have read more if I could have got pizza. Yes, you would have. It was an amazing thrill. Like, oh, I've won this thing. So the shorter book gets you to that stage faster.
I love it. The pizza incentive is a strong incentive indeed.
It doesn't have to be food, esteemed audience. It could be a video game or anything else. You're a big video game fan, right?
Oh yeah, big time. I love video games.
What are some of your favorites?
Oh man, the first like real video game. It was Halo that got me into it. Halo 1, I remember it was like 2003, something like that. I'm like 5-6 years old playing Halo, and just absolutely demolishing my dad. Made him quit video games. I'm the reason why he doesn't play video games anymore, because I would end up spawn killing my dad, and he gets so angry, and I'm a kid, so I'm like, ha ha ha, and so I'm having a great time doing that. And then so Halo's what kind of got me into video games, but I'd say I go on these weird rotations from playing Pokemon to playing For Honor, which is knights versus samurai versus Vikings, to playing Rocket League, which is like soccer but with race cars. And then that's like the main rotation I'm on right now is Pokemon, uh, For Honor, and Rocket League. But I also went big into like playing like Smite, League of Legends. I think notable mentions first and foremost are the Elder Scrolls series. That is that even though it came out in 2012, 10 years ago, I still don't think there's a better role-playing fantasy game out there. Like there's some that come close, but I don't think anything's top Skyrim yet.
I will confess to you that I only played Skyrim for the first time last year.
Really? So what did you go with? What was the build? What was the character? I need to know it all. I need to know it all.
Archery and stealth, I know where I put a lot of my points. And then I also, whatever the spell is with the flames, I max that out. I just love setting things and people on fire, especially the dragons. I mean, it's only fair they try to set you on fire. You set them on fire right back. I mean, that balances things out. But you know what happened with Skyrim is it missed me the first time because it had the worst save system, and all these generations later, it's not that much better. There's still not a real reliable autosave. But by last year, I played it in virtual reality was the reason I was willing to revisit. All right, if I can have a dragon towering over me, it feels like real enough. I'll do this. Because when I first tried, I got stuck. I used up all my saves on the same spot that I went into a place where I wasn't the right level. I was like, stupid Todd Howard, this game is terrible. I'm done forever. and until I got a virtual reality helmet, I was like, all right, what can I play on this Skyrim? Okay, fine, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, the Elden Ring Dark Souls player in me would always want to go to those difficult areas and just brutally grind it out till you get better.
Just a masochist.
Yeah, like those games really like they're definitely notable what mentions too. Elden Ring and Dark Souls, those are games that they toss you in, no map, no bearings, and they give you boss level characters that just absolutely demolish you, like from get-go. Just put your nose in the dirt and make you feel bad about playing the game.
From Software, that has the effect that if I see that name From Software on there, I'm like, oh, that's not a game for me. I've got a child, I've got the show, I've got all my video game time is relatively limited, so the amount of time I'm going to put into replaying. Give me an Assassin's Creed. I know it's an easy game. That's what I like about it. I always win. It's great.
Oh yeah. Well, congratulations on being a dad. That's awesome. How's that been?
It's everything they say it is. It's one of the few experiences in life that really lives up to the hype. So there's lots of experiences where like everyone tells you that like your senior year of high school is going to be the most amazing thing ever, and then it happens. It's all right. It's pretty good. But having a child really is everything they said. It immediately reprioritizes everything. My days of maybe trying to tough that out with a Dark Souls game it's gone. I can't. I'm half awake from dadding. I've got an hour before I pass out. Give me something I can win.
I totally understand. I probably wouldn't play any of those games if I only had an hour. I don't know. Fatherhood's always been something that I have always wanted to do and wanted to be great at. I've always wanted to be a great dad. So that's something I look forward to in the future.
Well, I'm watching our time, and it flew right by. It always does. But esteemed audience knows that I would never forget to ask Andrew Nehring, have you ever seen a flying saucer and/or a ghost?
I have seen a ghost.
Go on.
have not seen. So the only flying saucer-esque thing I can think of seeing would be, I just moved in this new place, and around like 1 in the morning, like just a beam, like not like a car light, but like an intense beam of light will just be shining through like our shutters, and I'll be like, and it'll be gone. And so like I don't even get out of the bed. That's the UFO. But as far as the ghosts,
Plural.
yeah. So growing up in my parents' house, like they have this long hallway, right? And my room is probably right adjacent to my parents' room. And then there's the stairway, there's my brother's room, and then there's another the walkway continues long into the game room. Now that door, I have gone out into the hallway and look, I make sure not to look down that way, because I swear every single time there's like a 10-foot tall shadow just standing there. And it is something that just like, in like, even when I walk out there, the vibe is different. Like it's different. There's nobody there. It's like that chilling silence where like you just kind of like feel your heart going. And if you look there and the heart drops and you run to the bathroom, turn on the light. But there's that. And then I think that's like the big instant I've seen a lot with the ghosts. Now I've had like, I wouldn't even say they're dreams, like they're almost lucid dreams, like waking up and like seeing a face and then rubbing my eyes and not seeing it and being like, oh, I guess I was just tripping.
Which, I mean, Occam's razor.
And they always say there's I remember my teacher always said this too. He's like, sometimes like if you catch me looking into the corner like very scared, that's because like a light's coming into my eye and I'm seeing a shadow. And like sometimes I'll see these shadows like dart when I'm like entering a room or like just moving around, and like I'll get spooked. And like I definitely saw the shadow. Was it a ghost? That's the question.
I think there's a whole nother novel series right there.
Yeah.
You finish up David Massie and the Realm of Champions. My God, it's time to.
Writing is something I never want to stop. I even have ideas for series that I don't even know if I'm going to do.
What's your favorite thing about writing?
For me personally, or seeing other people's reaction?
For you personally.
Me personally would probably be like, I love just thinking of like these characters. They almost like, they seem alive to me. Like when I'm like thinking about them, like they're actually there, you know? And so what I love is thinking of these worlds, getting lost in them. And then I just love it all, man. Love it all.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. Andrew Nehring, where can esteemed audience find you online, follow you on social media, and all that good stuff?
You can get me at TikTok at Andrew M. Nehring. You can look up my website, andrewmnehring.com, or you can just search me up on the web. You should be able to find my Amazon and all that.
And as always, esteemed audience, for more information about me, and more importantly, for interviews with thousands of authors, editors, literary agents, publicists, book people, the world's best people, head to middlegradeninja.com. I wrote a book. It's called Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Bees. It's one of many books that I've written, but that one, Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Bees, you can get as an audio book, a paperback, or the ebook is free. Yes, free to download whenever you're watching or listening to me, wherever fine ebooks are sold. So check that out. I'll get you hooked. You'll come back for more with Banneker Bones and the Alligator People and Banneker Bones and the Cyborg Conspiracy. That will hold you over until book 11 of David Massie is finally available. And as always, God willing and alive, I'll see you next week.